It's been an eventful offseason already in Pittsburgh with Tristan Jarry coming back and a lot of changes being made. Hunter Hodies of Locked On Penguins has it all covered for you next on the Locked On NHL Podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And we are now also available on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On NHL. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Penguins, Hunter Hodies. And Hunter, what a busy week it's been for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's start in between the pipes. Were you surprised that Tristan Jarry is back in Pittsburgh?
First off, Gil, yes, I'm gassed from all this stuff that's been going on this week here with Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins. But yeah, that was the big news. One of the big news pieces of the day on Saturday. Tristan Jarry comes back 5 years, $5.375 million per season. I was definitely taken aback by it. I won't lie. It seemed like term was the big sticking point between the two sides, but I think Kyle Dubas caved to what Jarry was looking for, and he gave him the 5 years. I see it as a big risk, but it has both boom and bust potential. When Jarry is healthy, I do think he is a good goaltender. You don't just post a .919 season and a .921 save percentage season for no reason. Like, the talent is there. He just has to be able to finish an entire season now without getting hurt, being consistent. I think he's in that, 8 to 12, 9 to 13 range of goaltenders in the NHL. He's not one of those top 5 to 7 guys. And that's still a reason why I'm hesitant that they gave him a bit of term. But when you look at the other options out there, they were dwindling. Frederik Andersen goes back to Carolina. Antti Raanta signs in Carolina. Cam Talbot is off the market. Jonas Korpisalo somehow gets a 5-year term. I was very surprised by that. When it came down to it, you had Jarry, then you had mostly some trade options. Vemelka in Arizona. You had Linus Ullmark in Boston, who was rumored to be out there. Connor Hellebuck, John Gibson, UC Soros. Kyle Dubas didn't want to pay any assets to get any of those guys. And he said, I'm going to bet on him. And he's doing that. And I think, honestly, the whole organization is betting on him. The medical staff is betting on him that his injuries aren't going to be an issue. Andy Chiodo is betting on him that they're going to work together. And Kyle Dubas and the coaching staff are certainly betting on him to be the goaltender to really close out the Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin era.
You mentioned Kyle Dubas, now the new guy in charge here in Pittsburgh. What is your first impression of the moves that he's made in the last week even?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Riley Smith deal. You can do a lot worse to replace Jason Zucker. Had 26 goals, 56 points this past season. Smith, that is, 1 year older, so it's not really that big of an age difference. I think he'll pop the Penguins 20 to 25 goals this upcoming season. I like the Noah Chari signing. He'll give you a physical presence that I know fans will love from a bottom 6 player. He'll score you some goals. He'll play good on the power play. He'll play good defensively. I like that one. Matt Nieto, he'll also give you double-digit goals, play good on the penalty kill, play good defensively. You're noticing a theme with some of these bottom 6 guys. The Penguins, I think, really took their penalty killing personally this past season with how bad it was, and they want to make sure they get back to being a top 5 to top 10 unit in the league. I also don't think they liked how many chances / goals they bled in the bottom 6 last season. You can have a bottom 6 that doesn't score that much, but you also can't have a bottom 6 that just gives up a bunch of goals in their own end. You're not going to be seeing that here with the Penguins. Even with Lars Eller, he may not have that goal-scoring touch anymore. Maybe his skating has gone down a little bit, but he is still a good player defensively despite being 34 years old. So I do think the bottom 6 got a bit better. I still want to see the bottom 6 get an actual impact player down there, because right now when I look at it, I kind of see just 2 fourth lines. I'm not trying to be harsh. That's just what I see personally. I want to see a player that can come in and maybe score you 17 to 20 goals, something like that. You have Nedeljkovic coming in as like that third goalie. I don't know what that means for Casey DeSmith. He's kind of a boomer bust goalie at this point, kind of similar to DeSmith, funny enough. But overall, I don't think he's done. I like most of the moves. I don't have a problem with almost any of them, except maybe the Eller one. The Jarry one is also a bit risky, but I don't think he's done. I'm going to give him a little bit of an incomplete grade right now. I said on my Saturday episode, I give about, C plus, B minus, somewhere in that range, but that can go up or down depending on what else he does this offseason. But he's definitely done a lot of things to this roster.
You talked about adding a bottom 6 guy who could add a little impact offensively. Is there someone out there that's targeted or rumored to be available that you think the Penguins might be interested in?
Not right now. I would have loved for them to go after Evan Rodriguez again, had almost 20 goals a couple of seasons ago. I know fans may not like that he disappears at times, but what bottom 6 player doesn't do that, to be honest? It would have been cool if they would have landed someone like a Bertuzzi, someone like a Duchesne on some of these one-year deals. But in the end, Gil, these players have to want to come to Pittsburgh. The Penguins can go after them, but these players could also just say, hey, I see this team, like, for example, the Maple Leafs as a team that could fully compete for the Stanley Cup, not a team like the Penguins right now who are kind of just in a weird spot. So maybe they did go after them. They said no, but it would have been nice to land a player like that who really could have given this forward group a big oomph heading into next season. Right now, there's really been no big rumors forward-wise. They also are kind of capped out. That $20 million of cap space went right out the window in typical Penguins fashion. Whoever is running the show always likes to spend right up to the cap with no room. The only big rumor that's out there right now is the Erik Karlsson stuff. The Penguins, I know, are very involved. I think it's them and the Hurricanes that have gotten to the end. I think the Hurricanes are probably more of the favorite right now because they have the cap space and more assets. But hey, until it's done, you never know. I think the Penguins are willing to do it. It's just a matter of, do the Sharks prefer that deal or Carolina's, or maybe there's a mystery team out there. But I still would like to get another bottom 6 forward in there that can really give the Penguins some more offensive production.
And as far as the draft goes, how did you feel about Dubas's first draft running this team?
The Braden Yeager pick was definitely interesting. Heck, I did mock him to the Penguins. I got that right, even though I had some players above him who I thought made more sense, who were on the board at the time, but they see him as a good two-way center. I personally think he may move to wing at some point because I don't think his two-way game is all the way there yet, but I think he has a top 3 to 5 release in the draft. Maybe he could be someone who scores 20 goals in the NHL, maybe puts up 45, 50 points, something like that. I think that's his ceiling right now, at least, but that could go a bit higher depending on how he does in junior league for the next season or two. I like a couple of the other picks they had, especially Pianiemi, that fun defenseman that they picked. I think he's still a little bit raw further out, and a couple other players who I also liked as well. They have a really good Russian scout that they must know how to find talent, because the last couple of drafts, they've done a really solid job with that. So I was fine with the draft. It's not, that bad, but it also wasn't just like an A+ or anything like that. But the draft is going to get more important for this team as the years go on. It's not as important right now, even though you want to restock that prospect pool, but I still thought they did fine, all things considered.
All right. Well, it's going to be an interesting rest of the offseason in Pittsburgh. Hunter, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find the Locked On Penguins podcast wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Sirius XM. Now just type in Locked On Penguins. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodies. Follow the show's Twitter at @LonesForPenguins, though who knows how long Twitter is really going to be doing this thing with the view limits and all this stuff. But you can find me on there. I'll be tweeting as much as I can until this temporary thing hopefully goes away at some point.
Hopefully that'll be soon. Hunter, thank you so much. Always great talking with you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting on MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you could spend on betting on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. Met fan, Yankee fan, or a fan of any other team, you got to check out the odds at FanDuel on the app. It's all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.